Welcome back. And now we are starting our exploration of the urinary system, which is sometimes known as the excretory system or the renal system. So let's go ahead and get started and talk about some of the functions that we expect in the urinary system. One of the main functions is that the urinary system filters the blood for waste. It's not filtering it for antigens, but it's filtering the blood and getting rid of our waste that have to do with our metabolism. And so let's look specifically at some types of metabolism and see what I'm talking about. For instance, something that's excreted in the kidney is urea. And urea is something that's formed in the liver that is an eventual breakdown product of proteins to amino acids where they form ammonia and it ends up with urea. And this is what kind of gives like some of the odor to your urine. Another breakdown product is creatinine. Creatinine, we learned about that before when we learned about the muscles forming phosphocreatine for storing some ATP. And so when that gets broken down, it gives us creatinine. Notice now the word is creatinine and not creatine. And then uric acid has to do with the breakdown of DNA and RNA as we are making and destroying DNA and RNA where they form in the liver once again. So as you see, a lot of these wastes are actually made in the liver and then they are dumped into the bloodstream and then they are dumped into your urine, which means that the urinary system needs to store the urine temporarily until you find the next bathroom to relieve yourself. Other functions of the urinary system which are super important is that it is the vehicle for maintaining water-salt balance. And you'll learn a lot about this when you study the physiology involved in the urinary system. So we're going to maintain some water salt balance, and we also are going to do more acid-base balance. So yes, I know that was touched on the respiratory system, and that can be very rapid through changes in breathing affecting carbon dioxide, and now we're going to see what the urinary system has to do with it. And lastly, but not to be forgotten, there's hormones made in the kidney. So there's a hormone called renin, R-E-N-I-N. This is not the same as renin, R-E-N-N-I-N, which is an enzyme that curdles milk. Our body's not curdling any milk. So you'll learn about renin, and renin is going to be important for maintaining our water-salt balance as well. And then we've already learned in the cardiovascular system about the hormone erythropoietin that's made when blood volume goes down or when oxygen tension in the blood goes down. So then the erythropoietin travels to the red bone marrow to trigger erythropoiesis. And lastly, as we learned when we learned about bone homeostasis, the last final activated form of vitamin D occurs in the kidneys. So if you have renal failure, this step cannot occur as well. So your kidneys, most folks got 2 of them. And if you look at them, for instance, this drawing in the bottom right, you'll notice that the right kidney is lower than the left kidney. That's not an optical illusion. And that's because in the right upper quadrant, you got that huge organ, the liver there. So the kidney can't take the same space as the liver. Overall, we say the kidneys are at about the level of the 12th rib or T12 into the upper lumbar area. And they just sit anterior to that quadratus lumborum muscle. I want to point out this picture here, which shows 2 lovely kidneys. And then you have a beautiful inferior vena cava to the right side of the abdominal aorta. And I want to point out that the only blood vessel that crosses in front of the abdominal aorta is the renal vein coming from the left kidney. And that should be proof enough that the renal veins are anterior to the renal arteries. Like there's no way on the right side that right renal artery is going to kind of cruise around the vein and sneak it in front of it. So there's lots of pictures which draw the arteries in front of the veins when in reality the veins are anterior to the arteries. The rest of the urinary tract is made out of 3 organs that are going to transport the urine out of your body. And the first, coming from each kidney, you have a ureter, and both of those ureters then lead to the urinary bladder down low in your pelvis. And from there, you have one opening into the urethra. So we'll spend more time exploring all of these much later. Going back to the kidney sitting there in front of the ribs is at danger for injury from broken ribs, but it actually has multiple layers of protection. So there's 4 layers that we're going to talk about them. But first, let me explain what these 2 pictures are. The picture on the left is a transverse section in the lumbar area. You can see the lumbar spine right there. So here is the kidney and this basically is looking at the right kidney from below, because there's your inferior vena cava, which is on the left side of the abdominal aorta. So that tells you you're looking at it from below. On the abdominal wall, we have our 3 layers of abdominal wall muscles. And then back here, we have our psoas major muscle and quadratus lumborum. And then posterior to the spine, we have our erector spinae muscles. So hopefully you're really well oriented over there. The picture on the right is a sagittal, not mid-sagittal obviously, but a sagittal picture on the right side, because this big huge thing is your liver, and this is the transverse colon right there. We have the iliac crest sitting right there, and you can see some ribs over there. And so this is the kidney in a sagittal view, and you see the lovely little triangular adrenal gland sitting on top. Okay, now that we're oriented, the first layer is the layer that's closest to the kidney, and that actually forms the capsule of the kidney. So we've got dense, irregular connective tissue with lots of collagen forming this renal capsule, maintaining this shape and giving it just a modicum of mechanical protection. Now, if you look at both of these pictures, you can see the capsule. On the one on the right, it is a white line, and the one on the left, it is the black line surrounding the capsule. And on both of these pictures, you see yellow stuff surrounding the capsule. So yes, immediately surrounding the renal capsule, our second layer of connective tissue is going to be adipose tissue. It has a name. It's called perinephric fat. And its job is just to provide a bubble wrap cushion surrounding the kidney. So we're going to use the word renal when we're talking about collagen things, and nephric when we're talking about adipose related things. So the third layer is called the renal fascia. And so once again, we've got bands of collagen. And yes, they do extend through the perinephric fat to anchor to the renal capsule. So it's not like sheets of paper where you can peel one off. They're actually all interconnected. If we look at this, and I need to put my glasses on now to see these lines. So start with the bottom right picture where it's a little bit easier to see. What you will notice is that this pale white line right here, this is the renal fascia. It goes completely around the kidney, and it's tethered up above to connective tissue behind the liver, and then it also is connected down below. On the right side, this is the the renal fascia going around the kidney. You can see that this fascia will fuse with the fascia, the aponeurosis of the transverse abdominis muscle posteriorly, and it also fuses with fascial layers over here by the psoas major muscle. And so that brings us to our fourth and final layer, which is more adipose tissue. So instead of using that word renal, we are going to use that word nephric. Both renal and nephric mean kidney, Latin versus Greek. So now instead of going with peri, P-E-R-I, we're going with para, because peri means around the kidney, whereas para means on the side of something. And so the perinephric fat posteriorly is between the renal fascia and the body wall. Anteriorly is between the renal fascia and the peritoneum. And so you can see the same thing on the right picture, anteriorly close to the peritoneal cavity, posterior close to the abdominal pelvic wall. So those are the 4 layers of protection for the kidney. And so I hope you come back soon as we start our exploration of the anatomy of the kidney. Thank you.